All right, everybody, welcome. So we're going to jump right into process or practice. We're going to do a little attunement here in the beginning of this tribe. This is what we do every single week, every Wednesday. We go right into it. So I'd like for you to just grab your headset if you have them. If you don't, that's okay. But just getting into position, nice tall spine if you're sitting. If you need to lie down, that's fine. Just give yourself an opportunity to find that perfect spot. We'll start by taking in a couple deep breaths in through the nose. Don't worry too much about how you do it, just deep, conscious breaths. We'll just continue to breathe nice and deeply. In through the nose, out through the mouth. That's it. As you continue to breathe consciously, slowly, I would just like to welcome everybody to this sacred space. As we gather here together, we open our hearts to the opportunity, open our minds to the opportunity of just receiving what is divinely being guided to us from our inner being. So let's just continue to take those deep, conscious breaths here. Allow every breath to bring you into the present moment. As we breathe, we can honor each and every one of us, each and every soul that's here tonight. Honor the journey that has brought us together. Because it takes courage to show up in this space. It takes courage to show up in a new container, a new sacred space, not knowing exactly what we're walking into. Allow yourself to fully arrive here without expectation. Feel the energy of this group. Feel the energy of the collective surrounding you. The energy kind of pulsating through you. Knowing that you are supported and you are held in this space, free to explore and expand in the light of your own truth. And you might feel different emotions surfacing. Whatever they are, just open your arms. Not physically, but just allow those emotions to be here right now. Whatever they are, whatever you're feeling right now. As the drumming continues to fill the air, let's use our imaginations. As you connect to the drumming, the shamanic drumming, imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast, ancient forest. Let this be your unique forest, whatever resonates the most with you, but just allow your inner child to run free, that inner vision, that imagination. What does that ancient forest look like to you? Feel the earth beneath your feet. Noticing that connection to the earth, grounding you in the present moment. With each beat of the drum, feel the rhythm of your own heartbeat, syncing with the heartbeat of the earth. As you connect with the pulse of life all around you, allow your heart to open, almost like the petals of a flower. Give yourself an opportunity to receive tonight, trusting that your inner being, your higher self, your connection to your soul knows exactly what you need. Feel the energy of love and compassion flowing through you, radiating outwards, connecting to everyone here. So right now we're just setting the tone with the music, the collective energy, with our breath. If you could now visualize a golden light that shines from the center of your chest. Imagine a golden light shining brightly at the center of your chest right now. This radiant love, this radiant energy of love and compassion. With each inhale, feel the light expanding. Have fun with this. You don't have to take it too seriously, but allow yourself to really connect with your breath. Every inhale, feeling that light expanding, filling your entire being with warmth and joy. And with each exhale, you could feel it radiating outwards. Feel it being pushed out, feeling it radiating outwards, just blessing all those around you with its healing energy. Allowing yourself to be open to receiving the wisdom that is most divinely guided to you tonight. The synchronicities, the dots that you connect, just trusting that what is for you will be here. That your heart is a beacon of light, guiding you on your path. And a good moment now to maybe even take this moment to set your intention for this sacred gathering, this tribe awakening that we are all a part of tonight. What wisdom or guidance are you seeking? What messages does your heart long to receive? Trust the answers that come forward for you tonight. Trust the wisdom of your soul, because those answers are already within you, waiting to be revealed in the perfect time. You're going to receive some powerful knowledge, powerful wisdom tonight. As we prepare this journey together into the depths of our hearts and soul, let us remember that we are supported by the wisdom of the ages and the love of the universe, of God, of Source, your ancestors, our higher selves. So now just giving yourself this opportunity to receive tonight without expectation. Hearts wide open. Thank you for being here. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes Just coming back to the present moment. Beautiful. All right.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Jenny, Lindsay. Everybody's flicking their camera on. Thank you. Yeah, please, if you feel comfortable, you feel called, put your camera on so we can see your faces and we can connect to each other's eyes and we can connect into this beautiful web of amazing humans that have shown up. Brenda, Jody, Hannah, oh my gosh, Kristen, Jesse. I saw Missy's on the call, Missy in the house, Hannah. So excited to see so many of these names and faces here. Thanks for taking the time to be here, folks. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you so much for showing up. I'm really honored to be able to, yeah, share some like beautiful teaching for, you know what, Joey, I'm just going to jump into me and then we'll
Yeah,
kind of go from there. Is that okay?
of course.
Sweet. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm just going to roll with it and then we'll roll into
Yeah.
the ways. I'm going to do the lady leading. My name is Sarah Shepard. For everybody that's new, thanks again for being here. I am a Gene Keys guide, a medicine woman. I teach awakening. I teach people how to take the energies and essences of consciousness and feel them and know what they are in their body and help map and understand where areas that are showing up as suffering can be refined and turned into potent, powerful illumination. And yeah, it's a tremendous honor to be able to do that. It's something that is my greatest heart's calling, and I love being able to share in this way. Joey and I created Tribe Awakening. It's like 6 months now, September, I think. Yeah,
I
we're
love
into
it.
6 months. And our vision for this is to create a space where people just kept saying, you know, where's my tribe? I'm longing to find people that have this like parallel mission of helping my body move through what is coming up, whether that's like a dark night of the soul or just a, you know, a challenging moment with a boss or a coworker or somebody, and to transform that and to turn that into an opportunity for growth and an opportunity for self-claiming and transformation. And the self-claiming part is such a big part of what Mike's here to support us with
Mm.
tonight. And we'll go into that in a moment. But yeah, I meet with and co-host with Joey on this every week. We bring in special guests every once in a while as an opportunity to like really round out what's possible. But most important, and this is something that I really think that I can't say enough, is that the vision is to cross-pollinate. We want more people to find each other. We want all boats to rise. We want there to be an opportunity for people to recognize there are many guides and facilitators and leaders that are just a few steps ahead or behind of you, and it's possible to create a community where everybody's helping each other out. And that's why we meet every week, is that
Mm-hmm.
by doing that we start to build a new nervous system, we start to build a new relational layer of healing, we start to integrate some of these big awakenings that might not land fully and be able to be integrated. They are integrated by showing up and doing this. And so I lead some of this through Gene Keys. Joey supports and leads it through theta journeys, through his guidance, through his wisdom. And I'm going to pass this over to you so that anybody, and I don't know if anybody here doesn't know who you are, but I would love for you to share kind of, yeah, the essence of who you are today in
Oh
particular.
gosh, today different from yesterday, different from the day before. Like all of us, we're all in this constant evolution and journey into. I feel our most authentic selves, as annoying as it might sound some days to hear that, but the truth is, we're all just kind of guiding ourselves home. We're all just, you know, holding our hands, each other's hands, to more of we are. My name is Joey, if you don't know, and I've been a hypnotherapist for about 6 years. Trained in hypnotherapy, clinical hypnotherapy, specializing in trauma and inner child work, past life regression. But you know, it's evolved so much more, I guess. To I feel like I'm a guide of the soul, and through my work and through my training, it gave me the basics I needed and the understanding of the subconscious and the unconscious realm to guide people. And I think with everyone who does any type of healing work or work with anybody, you find your groove, you find how you work with people through your intuition. And that's just part of the why we created Tribe, is to get people to trust that inner voice, that inner guidance. And in a world that is so noisy, and so full of opinions and everything else. My goal, as whether it's with my clients one-on-one or here with Tribe, or co-creating with Mike and Sarah, is just to get you to trust a little more, to feel a little more, to anchor a little more into that. Because I feel like that is part of the reason why this world is so chaotic, and there's so much going on, so much war still, and so much greed and this and that. Is there's unconsciousness. It's a battle of consciousness on the planet right now, and we lead by going within ourselves. This is how we make the biggest impact in the world, I find. And we're all just doing our work, and sometimes we lead from the messiness of it all, and that's what Sarah and I do a lot of. We're not even close to perfect or have it all figured out, but I think we've gotten pretty good at leading from where we are. Yeah. And I'm just really grateful to have each and every one of you here. Some of you I've seen before on my lives, and a lot of you have been here before, and some of you have worked with me, and I'm just very grateful and honored to be part of this tonight, and with Tribe in general. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. So Mike Elliot is, I would say, a dear friend of mine, has been a friend of mine for some years now, supported me through much of my growth. And we get to share little voice memos with each other sort of all the time around what's kind of true, real, and showing up for us. And Mike is a master of relational connection, supports people in many, many ways. I'm going to be dropping some of his links in throughout the live so that people can get some of the information, like his podcast and things like that. But also we'll be sharing stuff at the end in the email that goes out to everybody with the recording, so that if you feel like you are wanting this information, don't worry, it will come. If you don't kind of catch it, I'd rather you're paying attention here. And if you're like super stoked and you're wanting to hear it sort of right after, we sent out one of the podcasts, Mike, about the boundaries, just because it was like, well, how perfect. We'll prime everybody on the podcast about boundaries. Together podcast is one of the podcasts that Mike has. But tonight we're in particular speaking about boundaries, because this is a big it's a big step in being able to actualize these essences of the energetic landing parts. And it's a really easy one to miss, because I don't know very many people that were trained on healthy boundaries throughout their upbringing. So likely you made it all the way into your adulthood with the tools that you have, trying to get your life to work with the tools that you have. And there's much to glean from this incredible information that Mike's going to share, that creates one of the big epiphanies for me, is like, oh my gosh, I can still be in contact and have boundaries. I don't need to lose contact to have boundaries. And this is like a really, really big lesson for me. And so I was like, would you please come and share some of your genius and your energy and the beautiful soul that you are with these people, and bring it in this offering. So he, graciously said yes. Thanks for being here, Mike Elliot. I would love for you to share about who you are and kind of give us a bit more of a fuller spectrum than I was able to bring in there.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for the beautiful intro there, Sarah. Love just that we get to keep exploring that area of the gene keys, which is so your mastery, and bringing that projector magic that you have. And then Joey, God, just getting to feel you in that intro, I just wanted to hang out there for about an hour. Thanks for that grounding, centering. So hello, everyone. I am Mike. I am an intuitive coach. That's my trained background, and my specialty is in the relational space. And this has been something, in short, I'll describe it in a short way, is I arrived to this place because so much of my life, relationship was the most fucked up area of my life. It was, a lot of trial and tribulation and challenge. And, this was really stemmed from what the language, if you're not privy to this, is, this is what I call it, the early imprinting. When Sarah does her gene key work and teachings, it's, really another way of looking at the wounds and the gifts and the cities that are in the gene keys. It's, this imprinting that we get in our DNA, as we come into this human experience. And, my early imprinting was, my background is I was adopted twice in the first year of my life. Day one, born, separated from my mom, raised with my grandma for the first year. She got terminal cancer, went to the family that ended up raising me. And you can imagine the amount of imprinting for a little baby in that experience. And so as I went through my life, as time continued to go on, I felt so alone. I felt so inadequate. I felt so fearful, and also so many parts of me that were numb because I had to numb them out, because they were too overwhelming for my stages of development. It led to me creating a big mess and not even knowing that I was doing it. I had no boundaries. I was in an environment in that family I grew up in with an alcoholic, and that's just a complete boundary breach, is substance abuse. And so I based it in that. So I fast forward into my adult life and I just created a big mess. Eventually hit my rock bottom, the dark night of the soul, you can call it, where, kind of lost almost all the relationships that I had in my life. I was married at the time, and that came crashing down. And I described this in the live earlier, but for those of you who weren't on it, is I just found myself in the fetal position, crying like a little baby, like literally curled in a ball. And something clicked in that moment of, oh my God, I have recreated day one of my existence. It just actually came into that conscious awareness, kind of what Joey was talking about there, bringing up that level of consciousness so that it can actually be worked with. And so, from that day forward, it just, really, my path from there just ended up being leaning into lots of layers of support, learning about relationship, learning about boundaries, which is what I'm going to be talking about here today. And, just all encompassing relationship. This is, I started leaning into soul coaches and spiritual coaches and just trying to create the relationships that I didn't have growing up, so that my nervous system could learn from that and mature and evolve in the way that we're meant to. And so this has been my life's devotion, is, helping people in the relational space have a felt sense of the experience that they haven't yet had, so that that part can transform. This is what I love about the relational work, is that's once that place is met relationally, it's like it just obliterates the energy that was creating that pain point in the patterns that keep playing out in our lives. So that's a bit about me. My specialty is, really supporting people transform those really sticky patterns that just don't seem to shift. You've seen the therapist, you've done all the things, and it's just still in that sticky place. And one, this is now, the topic I'm feeling super grateful to be invited to speak to. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Joey, for this. And thank you, everyone, for showing up, is this topic of boundaries. Like, just how many of you, first of all, I'm curious, and I love interaction here. So if you're open to sharing some comments in the chat, I just want to see, raise a hand or, a heart emoji on your screen. There's a reactions button down here at the bottom if you want to click that. Thumbs up, of like, how many of you are already aware of boundary breaches or, struggles of boundary that you have in your life. There's like, anyone aware that there's some work to do around boundaries? Yeah, I'm seeing some laughs. I'm seeing some smiles. Yeah, yes, yeah, yeah. Boundaries. It's an interesting place. Yeah, there you go. So just take a look at that as those comments and those reactions are coming in too. God, on the collective level, we're trying to heal this shit around boundaries. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what is a boundary? And so I want to start just with the simplicity of that piece. Like, okay, what is a boundary? What I really love is simplicity. So I really want us to look at boundary as being like, we're this orb of energy. This physical body is made up of these energies that we are responsible to maintain and protect and preserve and to nurture. And so within this orb of energy, we are made up of, I like to oversimplify it, we're made up of a physical boundary. This is our meat suit that we're all walking around in. And it's our responsibility to protect and preserve our physical meat suit, this body we're walking around in. And so many of us, and this kind of goes across all the categories I'm going to touch on, but if in our early stages of life, if we have breaches in any one of these ones I'm going to talk about, that creates an imprint and, you know, an energetic signature of like, oh, it's okay that that happened. If there's a breach in it, it's like, okay, now the energy and the belief system around that is like, well, that's just normal and appropriate. And here we are, we're in this room full of recovering boundary breach people pleasing caretakers. And so we want to fix that. And so the boundary, filling out our energetic boundary, is what's going to help dissolve the mechanism of being people pleasing caretakers. This is what we really need to get to know. So physical boundary. This is the body. Wait, like some examples of boundary breach when it comes to this physical body is there's, you know, two different ways this can happen. It's where we breach our own personal boundary with our body. And this is like cutting, this is, you know, using substance abuse that hurts this vessel that we know isn't really good for it, but we do it anyways. That's a boundary breach on the individual sense. External boundary breaches is if, let's say, some stranger comes up to you on the street and then all of a sudden starts hugging you. You have no idea who they are. It doesn't feel comfortable. That would be a boundary breach. Or if somebody places their hand on you, or if somebody, you know, if you're in, this can happen in an intimate relationship too, is let's say one partner really loves to hold hands and make out in public, and the other partner doesn't enjoy that, doesn't love, you know, that public, you know, what's it called? And help me out there. The term for public
public display of affection, PDA. Yeah.
PDA. There we go. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, like, and there's some people that just don't love the PDA. So the boundary breach can be in that too. And so it's really important that we learn how to communicate what our boundaries are in all of these places so that we can start to fill out those, you know, how I see boundary breaches is there's the, you know, there's just no boundary at all. So our energy's just, it's not even a bubble. It's just this wide open vessel, and whatever opinions come in or whatever anyone wants to do with us, or if the people want to use our stuff or give me money and we're like, yeah, sure. Here, yeah, tell me your whole life story. That's an example of no boundaries. And in order to start to create the energy bubble that we're needing to be well, we need to start advocating for what we are needing so that that energy bubble can start to solidify and be whole, where you don't need to fight for what it is that you want or defend. It's like, oh, no, I'm so clear about myself and what I'm needing in all these categories that your energy's clear. It's like, you know, imagine like a really integrated set of boundaries within yourself. It's like you become like a lion. No one's gonna fuck with you. It's really clear what space you take up, and it's like pretty evident of like don't just go and pet that person. Don't touch them. Don't try to take their, you know, don't try to take their stuff. Like it's just an energy that's clear, and we don't have to fight about it. And this is, I think, a lot. And I just want to see like some head nods of like how many people have been trying to figure this one out of like, how do I have a boundary without having to fight or like, yeah, fight against or get in conflict or yelling matches or why are you doing that? Like that's a big one when it comes to boundaries. And this is what we're trying to sort out. How do we be respectful but clear about the boundaries that we are needing to, you know, really instill for ourselves? So that's you know, kind of going off on a tangent there, but there's the physical boundary is that one of like, it's appropriate to say, please don't touch me.
Mike,
and for anyone,
can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, please.
Because this is coming up with my children. And how many of us have had the uncle or the aunt that, and we've always felt like we had to give the hugs. Do you remember this? Like a lot of us. So I'm dealing with this with my kids. I'm like, hey, you don't have to hug everyone.
Yeah.
Just because they're an adult, just because I was programmed, hug your aunt, give your aunt a kiss, And I remember just being so fucking awkward with this. I'm like, fuck, I don't like this aunt. She's weird, or this
totally.
person is just not vibing with me. And kids know, they feel energy. They're sensitive. So this starts early, dude, doesn't it?
Oh my God. You nailed it. This is the early imprinting. And
Yeah.
generally our lack of boundaries, especially perfect example there, Joey, is, there's that one family member that everyone kind of, if you read the body language of the room when they walk in, it's like, oh shit. Like, oh, it's like, oh, I'm gonna get that hug. I'm gonna get that big sloppy kiss that I actually don't want. And this is the imprinting. A lot of the lack of boundary that we're all struggling and working through. Yeah, the creepy uncle. I got that one too. Fuck. And pardon my language. There's some charge there. Is, if that comes in those early stages of development, it's actually our parents' responsibility to hold the energetic, and this is really big. It's their responsibility to hold the energetic boundary for us in all of these categories. And I'll list them here. It's the physical, it's the intellectual, it's the emotional, the sexual, our material boundaries, and our time boundaries. It's our parents' responsibility to hold that for us while we're through in our younger stages of development. And if that doesn't happen because mom and dad haven't learned about their own boundaries, this is where all the breaches happen. And then, it's perfect breeding ground for us, so people pleasers and caretakers. And then it's like, yeah, sure, I'll just keep giving you everything you want. And then who pays the price? We do. So thanks for bringing that piece in, because that's really where it comes from. So, if we're in this place where boundary is like a sticky place, or it's a struggle point in our life, it's really important to start to ask questions of like, what was mom like? What were mom and dad like? What were your brothers and sisters like if you had them? What that creepy uncle like? What did you feel intuitively in your own body that you didn't feel someone advocate for you? And now you've created this, this collapse or numbness or shutdown in your nervous system, where it's like, oh, these things keep happening. It's helpful to ask these questions of like, where did this come from? Who did I learn it from? What's my family belief system around this? Can I actually speak to what it is that was I able to speak for what it was that I needed growing up in the household? That's some really good questions to ask to see where this actually came from, so that we can bring in the new experience and advocate for ourselves, and what I call parent ourselves. What we're trying to figure out here together, and I'm so grateful to Sarah and Joy for having a tribe like this, because one of the most helpful environments to learn what's needed for our boundaries is to be in safe, healthy connection where there is care and mindfulness for our well-being. Once we start to experience that, it's actually quite clear what the boundaries are. The contrast is so much more clear. If we're in a space like this and there's resonance of like, oh my God, I struggle with that one too. And oh my God, that happened to me. And oh, right, I even forgot about that. I've got a creepy uncle too. And oh, like mom and dad just had really inappropriate conversations around me, like that you weren't developmentally ready to be a part of. Like, these are some really important topics. Yeah, exactly. That's part of the impact there. Is somebody had posted there, he ended up being the parent. This is what's called the adaptive child. When there's a lack of boundary growing up, the adaptation becomes, well, someone's got to be an adult, and the kid has to grow up too fast. And then there's, lack of boundaries, and here we are. So I just wanted to name that because that's an important piece, is seeing where it came from, so that we can start to orient in this way of, oh, it's my job to parent myself. Really good parents attune to their children and bring them to the environments that they will thrive in and that they need. Every child has different gifts and sensitivities and needs, and it's the job of the parent to take them to those places so they can flourish. Some kids, they have a musical talent and they want to express it. Mom and dad take them, to those lessons and so they can receive those musical refinements and become their greatest version of themselves. And if your child's like into sports, it's the parent's job to take them there. I'm just giving that as an example because moving into spaces like this, it's like it's parenting ourselves and taking us into this environment of, oh, I can actually be me here. I can actually start to speak to some of the vulnerabilities that I have so that I can learn what I'm actually needing. It's interesting to see once we start getting treated and relating with people who are learning how to treat themselves, learning the relational skills, how to treat others well. Once we're in an environment like that, the energetic, and this is like the woo-woo part, is the energetic frequency we are relating with is informing us unconsciously. So this is why this work is so important, is that actually starts to build in that boundary that we're needing. Because part of what creates healthy boundary is us being in environments that support a sense of safety in our bodies. That makes sense, everyone? Yeah. And
Totally.
so, yeah.
I'm totally following. And I also am feeling so much grief for all of the times where it wasn't there. And so much sadness is moving through. I can feel for everybody else too. What?
Yep.
No. And so what that can do sometimes is that can, in doing this work, I just want to acknowledge and share what might be percolating up right now is some sadness and some grief around that child that didn't have anybody protect them, that didn't have anybody provide a boundary for them. So let's take a breath and just pause in that and give some space for that to move through, because as a tribe, we can hold that together. So wherever your hands land, if they want to land on your heart or your belly, we'll connect all of our hearts and bellies. We're going to land in our big self now, in our capable self now, that's choosing and showing up and doing this valorous work. And there's also a little being that wasn't protected, possibly, that wasn't advocated for, that was so confused and left behind, and they're welcome and they're able to be here too. And we can turn our love towards them and we can create a protection for them right now. Yeah. And then breathe that through the system, breathe it out fully from your body, breathe in a new imprint. Creating your own safety, creating your own autonomy, and valor for showing up. So much valor for showing up. Maybe give your heart a little rub. Oh, yeah. Thanks. I had a big wave of grief moving through with that. So yeah, thanks for the pause, everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that, that part of having to grow up so quickly, I know hit a lot of you. Right where you almost felt like you were cheated out of that childhood. And so like bringing them back, that now you get to know that you can still go back into that. Remember these things that you may have missed out on that you love so much. Like, this is one of the keys to this work, I find, is remembering what you love to do or what you didn't get to do because you had to grow up so fast. Welcome that little you back and say, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to feel? What do you want to go eat? What do you want to go experience? Like, that's important stuff. Like, you're bringing pieces home. This is what we're doing in this healing. We're bringing the little pieces home that felt disconnected for all this time. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. That's I'm in it.
Yeah, thanks for speaking to that and attuning to that too. And I'm getting chills just through my whole body. And this is an embodiment of that piece, these pieces that you both are contributing here too, is the attunement to what's needed in the present moment, because these little kids all live inside of us. How many of you feel that little kid in there that didn't get what they needed from mom and dad? They're here, they're always here, and sometimes we don't feel them or notice them and can't attune to them because their coping mechanism was to freeze or numb out. And so thank you, Sarah, for bringing that divine feminine to attuning that. Like, that's the gift of the feminine. I'm getting so many chills there, is to attune to the relational space to ensure that there's coherence, harmony, and safety. And then that masculine holding the presence for the feminine to use that gift. And allow that to actually present into spaces, like that dance of back and forth. And this is really how this transforms and transmute in the present moment, these awarenesses that land in those attunements to feel the feeling that has been there, that can come up and move in the present moment. This actually fills out more of that boundary. Every layer that we go and acknowledge and actually feel this energy, the iramote energy in motion, it needs to be in motion. If it doesn't, it's this energy block that lives out in the body. And so healing of these boundaries is exactly what's playing out in this present moment. This is the wisdom of collective spaces, is, oh, this energy, God, I haven't thought of that. And somebody had commented earlier about their passing sister, like what a big event to feel through. Oh my God, just when I read that, just the emotion that comes up. And this is how we can also support each other in healing these indents. How I see, harmed and hurt boundaries are these indents in this orb of energy of like, oh, hurt there, hurt there, hurt there. And every time we allow this energy to move, it kind of fills out these indents of like, oh, and that information, that energy that moved informs what health and wellness is. It informs like, oh, it's actually safe to be vulnerable and real. Oh, it's actually safe to feel my feelings, and, kind of cycle into that a little bit, because one of these 6 areas of boundaries that are so important is one of them's emotional boundaries. A lot of us don't feel our feelings or even know that they're in there because there's been so many emotional breaches that it's not actually safe to feel. Mom or dad said, like, stop crying, stop being upset. Here, what's the matter with you? Here, have this ice cream, smile. Like, this, continual experiencing of it's not okay to feel because it's actually invoking too much or triggering mom and dad too much, or whoever it is, brother or sister, like stop, stop. Yeah, like don't be angry at your brother and your sister, but the anger maybe was appropriate because there was a boundary breach of the physical part of the being. But how often does then that inlay, oh, I guess no boundaries, I can't actually be angry about this because mom and dad are upset about it, so I guess I'm just going to allow myself to be treated however I'm being told that, that I should be treated. So just not okay. So there's this emotional boundary that's so important for us to continually allow more space for, which is kind of what played out there. Thank you, Sarah. Is it's so valid. Whatever we're feeling is valid. It's our experience that we're having. It's the energy that's moving through our being. None of that emotion is wrong. None of it is a problem. And if someone can't hold it, find someone who can. Find someone you can connect with where there's that reciprocity of feeling together back and forth. It's such a repair of the emotional boundary breach. It's so appropriate to go into these vulnerable places, to be angry and frustrated sometimes, so that the information can inform, wait a minute, I'm in a situation I am not okay with. Thank you, anger, for showing up and letting me know that. Thank you, grief, for showing up and, soothing the sensations and the pain in the heart of like where there's been loss, but no one could hold it, another boundary. So that we've got the physical, we've got the emotional. Another one is intellectual, and a lot of the way these intellectual boundaries are breached is where people want to fix us, where they have opinions on how we should live our life, or if we bring our truth forward, it's like challenging it or arguing it or fighting it, and that's a breach of your intellect. You're so in right to have whatever it is that's true for you and not have to defend it. And when there's someone in relationship that makes what you believe within yourself as wrong or bad, there's a need for boundary there. Now I'm gonna, after I list these out, I'll describe kind of a little bit how that looks, because there's boundary and there's walls. And I'm seeing your backdrop, Megan, and it just makes me think of the wall part of just like bricked out, like no one will pass here. And sometimes that's appropriate, and in the relational way, we want to figure out of how do we stay in connection, what you named there in the beginning, Sarah. How do we still connect but still have this boundary? So we've got the physical, the intellectual, the emotional, and we have sexual boundary. This is a big one for a lot of people that was breached through those early stages of development that creates a really big impact. And how this pattern plays out, there's a lot of people that I work with where they don't even know the trauma was so big, they have no awareness that anything even happened in their childhood because their nervous system had to completely shut down. And then there's no memory, but how it's evident is the pattern that plays out in life is attracting people and partners who take advantage, who molest, who can't listen to a no when there's a no. This is, or like, I see it for a lot of women and it breaks my heart. Is like, there are a lot of women who are like sharing themselves and they're sharing their essence online and, just wanting to express what they want to express online. And they're, they get dick pics in their DMs, and that's so inappropriate and it's not okay. But it's also information of where there's probably been a boundary breach. So in that energetic field, people are pouring into that rupture in the boundary and replaying the story that happened. So it's really important to watch where these patterns come in, where there's been breach. Like if there's something that's happening to you in any of these levels I'm describing, and it's like, why is this happening to me? It's like, oh, there was probably breach in boundary. It wasn't learned. And so now it's like understanding, maybe feeling some of the layers of and exploring like where that came from, and then learning, okay, how do I hold myself? Where do I need to go? Who do I need to talk to? How do I resolve these pieces so that I can start to communicate some of these places? So the sexual one, some of these breaches in sexual boundary, this can be, wanting to be intimate when there isn't a desire to do that. There's this, it can be, this sexual isn't just physical. This can be in communication. It happens for a lot of women that I end up supporting is, men will just start messaging in sexual ways when it wasn't invited, and start to make sexual innuendos and comments. And if any of you women are listening to this, that's happening, that is not okay. It's so appropriate to be like, please do not speak to me that way. This, like my sexual energy, this temple is sacred. I did not invite this. Like, stop that right now, or I am cutting off all connection. And I just want to name there, that's not even necessarily a wall. That's just clarity of no. That's boundary. That's a strong energy. That's that line of like, don't touch me, back up. That is not okay. That is really appropriate. And if you get anything from any of the things that I'm talking about here, anything that doesn't feel safe or okay for you, it's appropriate to say no, stop, not okay. That is so appropriate. This is the repairing of where the boundary breaches have happened. This can even, there's so many threads I could touch there, but I'm really passionate about the sexual one because the impact that I watch play out and how many women end up in relationships that are sexually abusive, even though they're married, it's like they're giving what they don't want to give. And, and how this is happening in social media, where it's so easy for someone to penetrate the sacredness of your being without consent. It's not okay. Block those people, like communicate the no. And, if that's what if you feel access to, is like mirror that back of, dude, not okay, not appropriate. That's disgusting. And then, and if it continues, block, like just send that message of no one touches my sacred container in that way. That's really going to create a new ripple of information out into your field when you're connecting. So we've got the physical, the intellectual, emotional, we've touched sexual, and now material. All of the things that we own, like I love my water bottle so much. And I treat it really sacredly. I love it. I love how we have this resource of water that nourishes this vessel so I can purge toxins through my body and then hydrate my cells with it. I love it. And that's okay for me to love it the way that I do. and I'm very particular of who has my water bottle and how they treat it. And that's appropriate. And so I want to say that because a lot of us, have possessions, have things where people want to use them, people want to borrow them. And I don't know about you, but in my family, there's the one person who loves and is fully welcome to borrow all of your things, but every time it comes back, it's scratched, it's broken, and it's like, oh my God, like it can be so frustrating and discouraging. And it's appropriate to have boundaries and look and discern. This whole one of the big pieces when it comes to boundaries is discerning. Like, is it appropriate for me to lend? Like if I want to lend Sarah my water bottle, I know she's going to handle it well and it's going to come back the way that it is, and that feels good for me. I have someone in my family, I would not let them use my water bottle because everything they borrowed, they fucked up. And then I just harbor, and every time I go to use it, I'm like harboring in anger and frustration. I'm like, I loved my snowboard. Now I have this big gouge in it, and I was treating it so careful, and and it's appropriate to care about that. It's appropriate. You're human. We're having these human experiences, and the things that you choose as sacred and valuable, it's your decision to decide that. And you don't have to lend anything to anyone that you don't want to. And if there's somebody that you want to, and they show evidence in their behavior that they will be careful and treat it with respect, go for it. But that boundary is so important, the material boundary. And also just the communication piece when it comes to the material thing is it's very appropriate if you're lending some of your material goods, if you're having someone stay at your house, it's appropriate to ask how you want them to treat it. And it's appropriate to say, if it doesn't come back this way, or if it isn't this way, like let's say you have someone stay over and there's some particular thing that you care about, it's appropriate to say, hey, this is how I want it to look when you're done using it. And if not, like, I probably won't let you use it again. Or I'm going to ask, if it's a possession, it's like you have a Ferrari and somebody wants to use your Ferrari, you're like, yeah, go for it. But if you scratch it, you're paying for the repairs. That's appropriate to say that. And then that really creates a clarity. This is how we parent ourselves in these places. We communicate what it is that matters to us and what we're needing. Does it all make sense to everyone? And so moving to the sixth one is the time boundary. This is one I'm always learning in my life, and it's humbling. I grew up in an environment with an alcoholic who just sat around all day. And so my nervous system learned that, time was kind of unimportant. And, ways that it kind of shows up and can show up for people is, getting into connection that feels good. And then just like, oh my God, I just want to hang out here forever. Which is like, oh yeah, totally. There's that younger part, and like acknowledge that. I'm like, yeah, this connection feels so good and you don't want to go away. And oh yeah. And then the hurt that can happen if any of you have the wounding that you're sorting out around time boundaries. Sometimes it can look like you're hanging out and all of a sudden someone is good with time boundary and like, hey, I really love what you're saying, but I got to shift gears and I got to go. And then you're like, oh man, I'm so hurt. Like, yeah, totally. It's like the learning of time boundary, and it's also helpful to feel what's real. Like, oh, that does hurt. Oh, where do I do that? Like, where do I either cut people off short, and or where do I not honor people's time, and I'll just like hang out there forever and I just don't say anything. And it's a really big one. It's a really big one. And when it comes to what we all have in common here, is we all have the same amount of hours in a day. And it's really appropriate, I say this word a lot here, is it's really appropriate for you to choose how you want to invest that time. And it's really appropriate to if you want to shift or change course of how that time's being invested, it's appropriate to state that, to communicate it with self and with others. For me, so often I'm like, oh, I'm doing this thing, and it's like, You know, I love music, and sometimes I'll find myself watching some artists on like YouTube or something or on Instagram, and I'm like, I'm getting chills, I'm crying, I'm like, this is amazing. And I could just get lost in like, oh no, I want to listen to another artist. And then it's an hour later, and I'm like, gosh, shit, there's that time boundary again. I'm still learning about, just got lost in the portal of, you know, just what feels so good in the moment. And then, you know, bringing in the time boundary even with myself. Mike, remember what's important to you. Where are your values at? Oh yeah, okay, I could have been connecting with my son and I just spent an hour. Maybe it was appropriate for 10 minutes of that, but dude, you did it for an hour. No shame in that, but just, oh, there is the humble learning. Okay, work on that. Communicate the impact of it. This is an important one when it comes to the relational space. Communicate and acknowledge where there's been boundary breaches to others, and ask if there's anything that needs to be shared about the impact of that. That can be a really powerful connection point of hearing the impact of some of these places where boundaries haven't been figured out yet, and not taking it in a way of like, oh, I'm bad and wrong, but just like, oh, it's really helpful to actually feel another person and the impact of where I don't have boundary here. Oh, that's going to start feeding your system with more energy so that there will be more boundary next time. You'll be more mindful with relating with other people. You'll be more mindful of, you know, when it's happening to you, like, oh, I know how that feels. I definitely don't want to create that experience. So we've got these physical, the intellectual, the emotional, we've got the sexual, the material, and these time boundaries. And really, these six kind of encompass this whole energetic bubble of our being that we're all responsible for. And we get to learn from with each other. And the one thing I just wanted to bring in here is, you know, this is, I'm hoping what I've described kind of lays out how it becomes more of an energy orb. Like once these are communicated and sorted out, it's like our energy just will hold that. And I imagine, I just want to see some head nods. Like, how many of you have seen people either online or, you know, speakers on stage, or there's people in your family where it's like they don't have to tell you when to, you know, when the, you know, if you're having a conversation with them, you don't have, like, they don't have to tell you anything. They just hold an energy where you know it's time to stop talking, and then they walk away. Or if someone's on stage, it's like they hold such a presence where you know it's not a, like their energy is so clear that it's like you don't go up and talk to them and ask them for a hug and share your whole life story, because their energy's so clear. It's like it's just unsaid information of like, whoa, that person's like, it's clear. It's clear where I am in relation to them. This is the benefit of healthy boundary, is like I can feel where I am in relationship to where they are. And it's pretty evident of how close and how far to be, what to say, not to say, how to touch their body, not, you know, not to touch, whether they're sexually available or not. Like, how many of you have seen an empowered feminine who's clear in her sexual boundary? And it's like, you can already, just looking at them, you can see and envision what she's going to say and do if someone breaches that. If someone makes a sexual innuendo that's not consented, you know, how many of you can imagine what her body would express? And you can feel it, even if that's not happening. You can even imagine it. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to the energetics of the boundary. It's palpable.
Well,
and so,
Mike,
yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in. I wanted to ask you something before I lose this.
Yes.
There's two things to this I wanted to ask you about. A, when you see couples who are really embodied and in their anchor on who they are and how they show up for each other, you notice that when they come in a room, don't you? You see that this girl ain't even looking, this guy ain't even looking. It's so absolutely anchored. And then I was gonna also say, because you don't even need to, there's not even a question, it's an energy. Like you said, it's an energetic thing. You're like, yeah, it's not even, why even look at her or him? It's not, there's no point. And then for me, when I see someone in a business, for me, it's a big thing for business. When I see someone who's so clear in how he shows up, the timing, like this is where we're going to be. It's an hour. it's empowering to see that. When I see someone in healthy boundaries, I'm like, holy shit. Even when they give them to me, it's like, no, that's it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, fuck yeah. It feels good to be in the presence of that. Even though when I'm struggling with it, like I see it, I'm like, fuck yeah. So yeah, just something I wanted to just voice up.
Yeah, thanks, Joey. And I'm so glad that you spoke and brought that into the circle. And this is, you know, there's the wisdom and the byproduct of boundary, and this is a big one. So any of you who are working through these pieces to reconcile all of these boundary breaches and people pleasing caretaking, the narrative here, and this is on the intellectual level, this is the paradigm shift, is bound, despite what that inner critic says inside of there, that little chattering voice in your head when there's those moments where you don't bring in boundary and it's like, oh, they're going to reject me, you know, they're going to get mad at me, and then you know, it's not okay that I do this, it'll be rude. And there's all these fears that come up with all these stories that have been patterned in and grooved in forever. Boundaries create more health for everyone. Everyone benefits for clear boundaries. It's so informative. If someone is a breacher of boundaries, you being clear in boundary, you may be the first one courageous enough to give them an accurate mirror reflection that what they're doing isn't appropriate. They may just not even have an awareness. That's giving that person that soul information of, they don't, if you were to talk to their soul, they don't want to be hurting and harming. That's what they learned. So every time we repair a layer of boundary, we are creating more health for everyone around us. Doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable or welcome. There could be some angry, frustrated people that now all of a sudden they got a mirror reflection. But I guarantee, because I've been this guy and I've watched this with other people, where people brought in boundary where I didn't even realize I was breaching. Maybe it didn't feel good and I got mad in the moment. A day later, a week later, a month later, a year later, I'm so grateful. Tears of remorse moving through my system of me going so much of my life of not having an awareness that I was creating harm. Somebody courageous enough to reflect that to me because they had boundary, courage to hold a boundary. Oh, that's where the healing happens. That helped me cultivate an awareness to go work on the pieces of, why am I doing that? So that I can contribute and add more health to other people's lives. So I just wanted to lay that out to change any narrative that may be living in there. It's healthy for everyone to be bringing in your boundaries, really encouraging, practicing the no's, practicing the communication of what it is that you are needing and making them in the form of requests. That's so needed for everyone, so that everyone can land a little bit more in their seat, so we can all be different but still connect. That all makes sense for everyone?
I would like to pull in a pause again. In particular, because your beautiful wife, Courtney, has taught me this really incredible teaching around, you know, where my boundary is and where your boundary is, and where the two of them meet, that's unity. And so I really would like to speak about the connection around like the wall and the boundary that's still relational, and speak about those elements. But before we transition into that, Mike, would you lead us through a little kind of felt sense of like taking up space, like feeling our body and our bigness in our matter body, feeling our body and our emotional body, and really giving that permission for each of those layers before we transition to that other kind of part?
Yeah, so even just in this moment, maybe, you know, this is a really good way to allow in the use of all senses. And this would be really fun if we were all actually in the same room together, but just take a moment right now to kind of look into the, you know, if you've got yourself in gallery view there, like take a look at everyone in this space that we're sharing space with right now. And just notice everyone that's here together. We're sharing space together. You know, this is in the new digital way, but we're all sitting in circle together, and everyone has an energetic boundary that's taking up space. I want to just invite you to notice first, just notice the energy of everyone you're looking at and notice the differences. See if you can notice maybe those younger parts that are there, those tender parts. See if you can notice those really confident, secure parts. Just notice the qualities that you notice. And while you're doing that, I really invite you to notice, bringing your awareness within yourself, in your body. What are some of the sensations that you notice when you're relating with these other energies? Maybe look at one screen and then come back to yourself and notice. Where are my shoulders? What are the muscles in my face doing? What's in my heart? What are the sensations in my legs? Do they want to, all of a sudden, do they, kind of jitter a little bit and want to run, or are they actually soften and settle? Do they get heavier? And just kind of go through a little window to window and just notice the differences. This is really helpful information to notice where someone's energy touches our energy and what it invokes. Maybe you notice there's some energies where you feel more love and joy. Maybe there's some where it's like, oh, I want to connect with them more. I feel like it can, feel their journey. It's like, allow yourself to notice the energy you're feeling and witnessing, and then what it invokes in you and the energy you're experiencing within yourself. And then also maybe notice where there's some places where it's like, oh, there's a bit of a constriction. You can be curious about that. I wonder what I'm feeling or noticing there, where it's like, oh, I just need a little bit of space there. You don't need to delete their window, but it's like, oh, maybe there's something I'm noticing, or it's like, oh, that might be touching something that's familiar from my past. And I can still relate. I can still connect. Oh, I can actually, and this is a fun place to practice because there's so many windows. What feel like who do I feel a more genuine connection to that I do want to look at and notice? That's so appropriate to want to follow that impulse of where the connection feels good for you, where your system softens and settles more. And I just want to see some nodding heads of like, did you notice in your body some different sensations tuning into different people here? Yeah. This is the benefit of boundary. It's the signature of our energy, and part of how we, nurture this is by trusting and honoring the direction that it wants to go in that adds more wellness, where it feels good. Like Joey said in the beginning of his opening meditation of like, it doesn't have to be so serious. If we're in right connection with certain aspects of our being, and if we get to know them and we communicate and start to get clear of like, wait a minute, all these things don't feel good, it's appropriate to start to push those away or walk away from those things. This could be, so many different things. This could be food you've been eating. It could be people you're hanging out with. It's conversations you end up finding yourself in. So many examples. And so this concept that Sarah was speaking to, that's just such an important one, is, often there's a lot of trend in the boundary world. It's a big one that we're collectively trying to figure out, and I'm no guru and I'm not perfect and I mess it up all the time. But there is one piece that I feel really important, and it's the discernment between walls and boundary. There's a lot of people who talk about boundaries and really pursue it, but it's like, really, if you feel the energy of it, what they're embodying is walls. They're just building walls around themselves, and they're isolating themselves so much and angry at all these, cut everyone out and cut them out and don't, and it's like, it's going to be that's a lonely existence. really it's that little inner kid who's just so afraid of where the boundary breaches did happen that they're trying to stay safe. The people who don't want, I've worked with quite a few people in this place and help them feel enough safety in their body to actually want to go out into the world again and feel okay in their body. Is, a lot of people isolate thinking that it's a boundary, but it's like they don't go to any public community events. They don't, they don't have any friends. They don't talk to their family. They don't want to work. They don't like this. They can get really extreme of like, well, it's my boundary. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to listen to that. And it's like, it's not about getting away from everything. It's learning what you do want to relate with. This is the difference between, healthy boundary is discerning what we want to relate with, when we want to relate with it, so that we can have resilience in our nervous system and our body to be in situations that we aren't in control of. The part, like, there's so many of these areas I've talked about, we are in control of. We're in control of who, we can walk away from conversations. We're adults now. The sad thing is, and that sadness that came up earlier in the grief is when we were little, we couldn't leave. We needed mom and dad's room in the house and we needed food on the table. We were trapped. We were stuck. We didn't have a choice. Now we do. And it's our job to inform our nervous system we're not there anymore. We can leave the job where our boss is treating us like shit. It's appropriate. It's actually necessary for that little kid inside of you to find a new environment. If you're in a relationship where you're being criticized and shamed and belittled, it's necessary to get out of there. It's appropriate. And that isn't a wall. That's a boundary. That's you moving towards health. It's moving towards safety. It's, allowing the energy to move into a place of safe relationship. This is the whole purpose of boundary. Moving the energy to bring in more connection to the things that feel good and are helpful and add to our wellness, where more of our gifts are clear and reflected back, appreciated. Oh, it's actually connecting more. Boundary means, learning what's required to have more connection of what we're wanting in life. And the walls, it's kind of, you can kind of, there's a felt sense of it. And sometimes it's appropriate for a period of time to allow something to heal. So an example of this could be if you're in a toxic environment, like let's say in an abusive relationship, and sadly it's so common, it breaks my heart. People pleaser on me and the caretaker wants to save them all. I just want to get buses full of these people who are being abused in relationship and let's create a community, because it just breaks my heart to feel the impact on the kids that are in the environment of that happening in partnership. So table that human part of me is a wall would be appropriate for a period of time if like, let's say the partner is creating physically abusing, sexually abusing, emotionally abusing. There's a lot of harm happening. It's going to be really hard to just hold an energetic boundary in that situation because the dynamic is so strong that it'd be like, oh yeah, and communicate, don't do that, I don't like that. But then, this person gets the shit beat out of them. It's like, oh, that's where a wall's needed. And this could look like calling a friend and like, can I come stay at your house? And oh my God, I'm like, going to the safe house and taking the children and calling child services. Like that's like building up that brick wall of protection. But walls are temporary. Walls are just a temporary blockage from what is being experienced so that the health of relationship and the connection that is needed can start to integrate and land. Then the clarity of that information can be like, oh, I don't need a wall there anymore anytime I notice someone who has those similar qualities. Because this is how walls show up, is when there's hurt and harm that hasn't repaired or resolved from a past relationship, from childhood. Every time that similar quality comes in and another person, it's like, boom, gone, don't talk to me. leave an event, and this is one that I used to experience, is I would just not go to certain events or bars or places. It's like, I can't eat. Nope. That reminds me of my dad. And it's like, but I'm missing out on life. And so it's good to notice where the walls are so that we can start to understand, like, what was that protecting and preserving, so that we can actually just start relating with the things that we are needing, so that we can drop the wall and have so much safety and security in our body that we can be around those similar situations, but not need to push it away or run away. Our energy's clear. This is the beautiful part, is once we cultivate the health in our nervous system, now if we're in a public setting, using the same example here, is if I leave an abusive relationship and I learn how to build all these boundaries within myself, if I'm out in the world and I see abuse happening, guess what? I've got the tone and the resilience in my nervous system to go step in a helpful, grounded way to introduce the potential for resolution and, a softening of what's happening in all of the distress that's leading to abuse. Like, I can go in there grounded and not need to beat the person. This is how it used to come up for me when I was younger, in my 20s, is if I saw a woman being, treated poorly by another man, I'd just go beat the crap out of the guy. But that's actually not boundary. That's me, because of all the walls that I've got in me, and I'm seeing that happen. It reminds me of my childhood, and then I want to go beat this person up. And it's like, that's not relational. There's no benefit there. Feels good in the moment. Sometimes it's appropriate, but it's not the way that it actually needs to be handled. Non-love needs to be met with love. And so it's like, in these situations, it's bringing all the cultivation of our boundary of, like, now I can be that safe, stable place that can witness the level of harm and dysfunction that's happening here without judgment, and bring clarity of what's needed to resolve it. This is where we get to be allies for each other. The more we actually start to resolve these inner energetic imbalances in all these different areas, and the more we get to learn about these boundaries, we get to be allies on the field together, not fighting a battle, holding the sacred space for us all to be welcome in our differences, where we get to actually experience the benefit of more love and, enjoyment of, like, we get to, just be with each other and appreciate the differences, and not have to fight each other where it's like, oh, like, I need to be right, or, all these things. This is really, the boundaries are what, in the moment, and this is a big part to kind of sum it all together, is so much in the mind. And this is a big one, is what I feel like we're trying to sort out collectively. These wars in the Middle East, it's like, we want it, so it can invoke a lot in people who, where there's maybe lack of boundary inside. It's like, I want to go over there and vigilante, like, take these people out, and and it's like, that isn't the solution. This is how the harm just perpetuates over time. This is about learning how to hold this container so sacredly, and then ask the question, what can I contribute to this situation that'll be helpful? Am I meant to contribute something to the situation that will be helpful? The more we have clarity in our own energetic boundaries, the decisions and the choices we're being led, and guided to do, are just that much more clear. It's simple.
Mike, so many things. I wish we had more time, because
I wanted to jump
I
in
feel
like 20
like I want to
times.
go into, like, so much. I know I want to go into so much Q&A, and I just really also recognize that everybody also has families to feed, and they've got a life, and we are just about at 90 minutes, and typically the way our classes go is an hour to 90 minutes. Sometimes we go over, but we do try to follow this boundary element, and I'd like to bring a few pieces together just to kind of create a bit of a consolidation sort of moving forward too. So one of the kind of elements that has been so helpful in some of the sharing that Mike and I have been growing through is this spectrum of consciousness and the gene keys that I've been in particular working with, that has to do with an imprint that I have as part of my growth and my evolution. So for those of you that are new, all of the things that are showing up are a reflection of the interior side, but we don't have control over the outside world. We have control over the inside world. And when we shift what happens here, we shift what happens out there. And the spectrum of consciousness related to what awakening is right now is that consciousness was is in this field for a long time of codependence. And codependence as a frequency of consciousness in the 19th gene key is moving from codependence to sensitivity to sacrifice. And I would refine that further to say it's codependence to sensitivity of self, of sovereignty to interdependence. So I'm fully me, I'm fully actualized, clear in my vessel, fully pushing out all that is the truth of my physical, emotional, conscious being, and it's felt in the world. And then everyone that knows that can clearly read it in themselves. Sarah's got the solution for this. Let's work together for this. Joey's got the solution for this. Let's work together for this. And you can see how this wave of collective interconnectedness creates a group field where we are all one. You know, Bob Marley, hey, he kind of knew what was going on. That guy,
Yeah.
Way ahead of his time.
Genius. And that's what we're awakening into.
Yep.
That's what this is right now. And that's why boundaries is coming up so much, is because all of us in our interior sense is like, hey, you know, I'm curious about this. That curiosity, it's not maybe showing up in a way right now that I'm loving and I want to figure it out because I'm suffering so much and I want to figure it out, or I'm curious about it. Either wherever you are on the spectrum, that is guidance. That is your inner guidance saying, this is my soul's journey. This is my soul's work. And so it doesn't matter what gene keys you have. It doesn't matter these imprints. They're going to show up. It doesn't matter if you know what they are consciously. They are what's showing up in your body. And so if you're feeling any of this information, and I went through some waves of collapse in this where I could feel my nervous system be like, whoa, overwhelm. Feel that. Feel the whoa, overwhelm. It's okay to be with overwhelm if you can bring consciousness to it. It's okay to be with the triggers or the pain or the whatever is there if we can bring our conscious awareness to it. And if we can't do that alone, which is many of us, parts of the time anyway, then we get to do it together.
Yep.
I really want to quickly go into a couple of parts so that if you do want to join Tribe Awakening, one of the, I don't know if I can jump on the share. I think I can. One of the things that a lot of people ask in this whole kind of journey is like, what? I don't want to miss out on stuff. So Tribe Awakening has a whole portal, a whole library of all of the different weeks, all of the different lessons. No matter when you're coming in, you can go and click and learn about the different gene keys and the different tools and the different things that we've done so far within this material. And right now, it's just the nature of the way it all came together, like with the eclipse and the Venus sequence and the work that I'm doing with Courtney and this other Venus sequence. Joey and I are also working on this heart healing inner child phase of the relationships that you're magnetizing to you, that your attractor field is bringing in, are there to trigger your karma. They're there to trigger your awakening. And when they trigger your awakening and it turns into combative or it turns into collapse, then there's a missed opportunity to respond to life and to build a new pattern. And so the building the new pattern and the building the new way of relating is so much of the work that we do. Next week, when it's just back to Joey and I, if anybody wants to join, there's going to be some links in an email that goes out. We would get you to get your gene keys. We're starting in the purpose sphere, moving through the path of Dharma in our gene keys. So anybody that's new to this, it might seem a little strange and like you don't know what is going on. It's okay. We teach all of this stuff. This sphere right here that we're going into is why we attract these elements into our life. And the purpose sphere is the charge of energy. This charge of energy that you're feeling from us tonight is the charge of energy that draws exactly what people, allies, energetic team members that are part of our fractal family towards us. And then the next thing that happens is we get to discover our karma. We get to discover the way that our wounding is trying to protect our hearts, and the way that that person that is the person that you love so much that left the towel on the floor for the 18th fucking time is not your ally in this moment. You know, that is your karma. That is your opportunity to actually create more connection. But the clarity of self is the first element of that. So hopefully you can all join. Hopefully we get to see you next week.
Yeah.
Joey, I'd love for you to kind of weigh in and share kind of some closing pieces.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. There's a little bit of a delay there, so I felt like I was talking over you. Mike, thank you so much for all your wisdom. And what I feel like a lot about boundaries is really just loving yourself into more. Like those boundaries is about loving yourself more. You know, you might not see it now because of all the conditioning. And I wish we had more time to chat on it. But Mike, I'd like, you and I are going to chat a little bit more, but so much resonated with me, from the sexual boundary to abuse and some of those things, and how much they impact how, we show up. But this is a big part about tribe. We want to put all the pieces together, the conscious pieces, the unconscious pieces, give you an opportunity to feel in a container, to really lean into the darkness, because it's important, in a container that you're supported. Like, this is really what it's all about. It's soul family. I'm just, today was really, really special. So thank you, Mike. Thank you everyone for showing up. I hope, if it resonates with you, you'll sign up and hang out every week from now on for the next little while. And I don't know, I'm just feeling super grateful for everything. So that's all I got for now.
I would love to invite everybody, just pop in the chat, like, what was the thing? Like, what was that thing for you? There were so many things. I feel like there's so many elements, but I'd love to hear from everybody else. Like, what was the thing for you that was like, whoa, that was incredible. I didn't recognize this. Or, the triggering part, the element that it's like, dick pics are not allowed.
Dick pics. I knew it. That's what it was.
I'm using that because it's such an extreme example, but like, yeah. That was a good one for me. The walls versus boundaries has been a good one for me. The one that I felt like was underscored for me is this place of reflection of like, hey, if this is showing up, then that's an opportunity for me to be like, something in my energy thinks this is okay. What is going on with that? And being curious for that, of like, I didn't invite this. And to be able to recognize those times where maybe somebody isn't approaching you and you're just like, I feel so alone. It's like, well, then where are the walls? Where am I creating this place where nobody feels like they can approach me? And from that space of curiosity, there's some really cool things that can start to shift. And shift happens as soon as you focus on it, as soon as you bring awareness to it. That's how magical you are. You automatically shift the world by bringing your attunement to it. And so when we do it together, it gets super special. And I love like reading all of these. Having boundaries creates more health. The roller coaster of emotions that I went through, and vulnerability. The vulnerability piece is like so amazing, because it's, this time that we're in, this key of valor that we're in right now. Yeah, to be able to take what's true for me and to share it, and to have the confidence to say, this is what's true for me. And in this moment, I'm terrified that I'm going to lose connection, or I'm terrified that I'm going to be judged, or I'm terrified that whatever's here for me in this moment is unhuman or not acceptable, or, like going to be something that the loses connection is what kind of keeps coming up. So yeah.
That right there.
Thanks everyone for your comments. And
yep.
Yeah.
So good. Just so good. You always have a way with words. You always absolutely nail it.
So good.
You're putting words to everything that I'm feeling, and I'm like, fuck, yes. So I love that. So good.
Yeah. So just in like final acknowledgement, Mike, your work in the world and the light of being that you are, and the clarity of your essence and energy, I just want to acknowledge, hold my hands up to you and say, thank you, sir. I'm so grateful to have met you. I'm so grateful to know you. I'm so grateful to grow with you and be inspired by you. Thank you for being here tonight. Everyone, if you want to give some snaps, some hands up for Michael. Thanks for being here. And again, super grateful to everybody. Thanks, Joey, for being amazing and leading your attunement. I'm going to bring us to a closing really briefly so that we can land fully in our bodies and integrate this information. So ground through your feet or your butt, however you're sitting, land fully in the foundation of your being. Draw your energy as if you were to pull a camera down from the inside, feeling my rootedness, my substantial being, and then allowing that awareness of self to move throughout the body, moving up as if it was coming to the surface of your skin, and then really like landing to the surface of your skin, and then illuminating that. Turn it up, make it brighter. Turn it into this diamond white light so that you're glowing from the inside out, radiating in all directions, fully taking up the space that is your whole human experience. You belong in this life. No one could be you. You're the one that has brought yourself to this space of your full actual illumination. Thanks for being here. Big breath in. Let all that go. Lots of love to everyone. Thanks again for all of your shining faces. And thanks again, Mike and Joey.
Thank you, Joey. Thank you, Sarah. Oh, I love you both. Thank you, everyone, for showing up.